Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, President Marcos announces the Philippines has struck natural gas at Malampaya East 1, a first major discovery in over a decade. Business Group says the government's big, bold reforms will help rebuild investor confidence, but the real impact will depend on its swift implementation. And after hitting record lows last week, the peso opens this morning at 59.34 against the U.S. dollar. We speak with former Deputy Governor of the Bangko Sentral, current Principal Advisor of Global Source Partners, Diwa Guinigundo. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. announces a major natural gas discovery near the Malampaya field. The president says the new reservoir, Malampaya East 1, is located about 5 kilometers east of the existing field and is estimated to hold around 98 billion cubic feet of gas. He said this could produce about 14 billion kilowatt hours of electricity a year, enough to well could flow at around 60 million cubic feet per day, indicating high productivity. The discovery is part of the Malampaya Phase 4 drilling campaign led by the SC3A Consortium under Prime Energy.
Pinagmamalaki rin natin na Pilipino ang nanguna sa drilling na ito. Higit sa lahat, natapos nila ito na walang aksidente o environmental incident. Tunay ito na sa responsableng pangangalaga sa kaligtasan at matibay na pagtutulungan ng gobyerno at pribadong sektor, makakamit natin ang mas maaasahang supply ng enerhiya para sa bawat Pilipino.
Major business groups say the government's pledge of big, bold reforms is a credible step toward rebuilding investor confidence, but warn results will hinge on swift and decisive execution. This came after the economic managers of the Marcos administration unveiled reform measures aimed at attracting investments amid the fallout of the flood control scandal. Key initiatives include restoring over 4 billion pesos in support for the Comprehensive Automotive Resurgence Strategy or CARS program and granting 14-day visa-free entry for Chinese investors. Foreign Buyers Association President Robert Young told the business world the reforms were, quote, music to the industry's ears. He stressed, however, this will depend on the urgent time of execution and implementation, particularly in easing the cost of doing business. The European Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines called the reforms directionally correct, with its president Paulo Duarte saying sustained execution beyond political cycles is key to improving competitiveness and investor trust. The British Chamber of Commerce Philippines described the moves as an authentic effort, saying, quote, "It's great to see that we're doing these things." However, he also called on action on food supply tariffs and cybersecurity. Meanwhile, the Federation of Philippine Industries welcomed the 14-day visa-free policy, saying it signals a balanced approach to trade and diplomacy beyond geopolitical dispute. Another business group has welcomed the government's reforms, this time on tax audits, saying it could boost investor confidence. The Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Inc., or FFCCCII, voiced support for planned changes in the Bureau of Internal Revenue's audit system. That's following the suspension of letters of authority, or LOAS, last November. In a statement, FFCCCII President Victor Lim said the reforms signal a shift toward transparency, fairness, and rational engagement between the government and taxpayers. Finance Secretary Frederick Go said the agency is moving toward a digitized, risk-based, and data-driven audit system to curb abuse and strengthen accountability. Once audits resume, he said, fewer offices will be allowed to issue LOAS and taxpayers will face fewer audits each year. The FFCCCII said these changes reduce discretion, add predictability, and help create a fair business environment, which are key to attracting both local and foreign investments and supporting long-term economic growth. Joining us this morning is former Deputy Governor of the Bangko Sentral and current Principal Advisor of Global Source Partners, Diwa Guinigundo. It's good having you back, DG Diwa. Welcome to the program.
All right, thank you very much, Cathy, for having me here again.
All right. Well, Cabinet Secretaries held that economic briefing last Friday. From a former central banker's lens, did that event do enough to change the narrative in the markets, or was it more optics than substance?
Well, I think it's an excellent response to what is happening today. Recall that last week, what we saw was a big dip in foreign direct investment in October. That's about 40% drop. And at least there are three reasons why the FDI actually declined. We have weakening macroeconomic fundamentals. This is about the growth prospects becoming dimmer. The fiscal situation is not encouraging because revenue continues to lag behind expenditure, and external payments situation is also precarious. And that's one of the reasons why the peso has been weakening in recent period. Second, of course, is global shocks. Not only the increasingly protectionist stance of the U.S. in terms of higher tariffs and very strict immigration policy, but also the possible increased and prolonged pause on the part of the U.S. Fed. And again, that is a challenge to the BSP. And finally, negative market sentiment. And again, this is all about corruption and governance. I said it's an excellent response to the seeming erosion in public and business trust and confidence in the Philippine economy. So I think we should commend our economic managers for initiating this dialogue with our business, with our business partners. And there are two objectives to this, Cathy.
Could we just take it from excellent response and dive deep into what the economic team is highlighting? There are four concrete moves. First one is restoring the CARS program, and then the 14-day visa-free entry for Chinese visitors, a digitized BIR audit system, and a single window customs platform to cut the red tape. In your view, which of these can actually move the needle, especially due to your concerns of falling and crashing FDI on investor confidence in, say, the next 12 months? And which do you think are more signaling than game-changing?
I think all of this can move the needle, but just a little bit. Because the problem is about governance, it is about corruption, and that is behind the drop in FDI as well as in terms of domestic investment. Remember that in the third quarter report, the GDP actually slowed down to 4%. One of the reasons, of course, is that private as well as public investment had really slowed down. And the reason, of course, is the chilling effect of what we are seeing today, what we are witnessing today in terms of the investigation behind this flood control project. Okay? So in other words, the issue is not just about ease of doing business, ensuring that policies are in place to avoid corruption. Because who will implement those, let's say, game-changing and needle-moving initiatives unless the issue of corruption is addressed head-on and the culture of impunity is also addressed by the government, no less than the ombudsman and the civil courts? I don't think the needle will move significantly, Cathy.
Well, what do you make of the local currencies movements of late? They've hit record lows last week in as many days. It's slightly opened stronger today, but what do you make of that plumbing to record lows?
Well, number one, I was saying earlier that the prospect for economic growth is not very strong. It is weakening. Second, of course, is that the external payment situation is also quite precarious. First 9 months, current accounts stood at about 12.5 billion. And despite OFW remittances and BPO receipts, the overall balance of payments came up to about 4.8 billion. This is the fundamental reason why the peso is weakening recently. At the same time, negative market sentiment is driving further the erosion of business trust and confidence. And finally, I also said about the possible prolonged pause in the U.S. Fed. Now, the BSP continues to sound dovish, at least for the first few meetings of the Monetary Board. And that could also send a signal to the foreign exchange market. And when the differential between domestic and the foreign interest rates start widening again or narrowing relative to the U.S., then a weakening peso is to be expected, Cathy.
So given all those event risks here and overseas, what kinds of conversations are you generating amongst your clients, global source partners, and within your circles?
They were saying, how long will this continue? In other words, this cloud of uncertainty, the issue about governance and corruption. In other words, they have been waiting for the resolution of all of these cases involving the flood control scandal. And if this is something that is disposed immediately or expeditiously by the government, I think that is a game-changing development.
Well, the palace says it's a strong dollar story. Is it?
Well, it's a strong dollar story in one sense, yes, but it is also an issue of how weak or how strong are the domestic economies, for example, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and in other parts of the Southeast Asian region. In other words, even if the dollar is strong, if the domestic factors could also provide some impact or some cushion to it, we will not be seeing the significant weakening of the peso today.
All right, well, given the peso's record weakness now, how close do you think we are to where governance-linked FDI weakness is visibly feeding into the currency stress?
It is something that is market-driven, Cathy. It is not a cut and dried number that at 59 or at 60, this is the a golden situation as far as the peso is concerned. It will all depend on many factors. For example, inflation differential, capital flows. So there is now not a single factor that will tell you that hey, we have reached a good situation where the peso is now competitive. If we simply look at the real effective exchange rate of the peso, we are more competitive compared to, let's say, the previous year, precisely because the peso has depreciated quite significantly, and of course the issue of inflation.
Okay, well, you write in that same column.
Yes.
If I could just carry on with the column where you wrote, every peso lost to graft is a peso stolen from classrooms, labs, digital infrastructure, and public health. If you look at today's dollar-peso levels, how much of the 59 plus to the dollar in your mind is the price of years in underinvestment in people and infrastructure?
Very difficult to say, Cathy, but the telltale signs are quite clear. Over, let's say, in the period of 10, 15 years, our senior high school students have fallen behind their counterparts in terms of their proficiency in reading, in science, and in mathematics. Their creative thinking has also lagged behind our counterparts here in Southeast Asia. That's one. Second is, even in terms of our proficiency in English, remember that one of the strong points about the Filipino labor force is our proficiency in English. But that is past becoming, not true anymore, in the sense that other countries have caught up, and our proficiency has actually deteriorated over the years. Okay, So this is something that we can say has been manifested in terms of our not only economic performance but the performance of our future labor force. If this is the kind of proficiency in science, technology, English, and math, what kind of labor force are we looking at? What kind of leadership are we looking at 10, 15 years from now?
Well, having been a regular participant in the Monetary Board deliberations yourself during your years at the Bangko Sentral, how do you think the Monetary Board now should act, given the peso's recent drop to fresh lows?
Well, based on the pronouncement of the BSP, I don't think they will do something that is drastic to reverse the trend of the peso. I think they will continue to participate in the foreign exchange market only to address the so-called sharp volatilities in the foreign exchange market. But of course, they must have been intervening in the foreign exchange market, and one can see that in terms of our gross international reserves. It has barely moved over the last 2 or 3 months, despite the inflow of dollars and capital.
Are you finding any reason that there might be a major intervention happening down the line?
Well, if nothing happens as far as governance and corruption is concerned, probably the peso can swing significantly or violently to the other side. If those big, bold reforms do not produce the kind of fruits, the kind of results that people are expecting in terms of, restoring public confidence and nurturing partnership with business, then we are looking at a more significant swing of the peso.
What's that significant swing then? Could you put a number to that?
Well, the usual number of 60 pesos to a dollar. In other words, the peso becoming a senior citizen.
Exactly, and we're not talking about each other, are we? All right, thank you so much. Deputy Governor Diwa Guinigundo, a former Bangko Sentral official there and of Global Source Partners. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee will resume its flood control hearing this afternoon, focusing on accusations that a former DPWH chief had deliberately submitted wrong coordinates to Malacanang. There is no confirmation if resigned Public Works Secretary Manuel Bonoan will appear in the first Blue Ribbon hearing on floodworks since November of last year. Blue Ribbon Chair Senator Ping Lacson recently accused Bonoan of sending incorrect grid coordinates to Malacanang based on information from a source, a claim affirmed over the weekend by Bonoan's successor.
Totoo na merong mga maging coordinate at yun ay nanggaling sa DPWH noong Agosto. As to yung motibo doon, hindi ko masasagot. It makes it inaccurate. No, but kaya nga ngayon, we have to do ongoing validation, no, of all these projects. But unfortunately, sa dami ng mga 30,000 plus ang ongoing ng DPWH, so kaya nga yan, i-revalida lahat ng mga project na yun. Kasama na rin yung tamang coordinates.
Lacson said the wrong coordinates could affect the probe into 421 flood control projects tagged by field inspection teams as ghost or non-existent. He added that these data were used for President Marcos's citizen complaint website Sumbong sa Pangulo. Bonoan returned to the Philippines yesterday after 2 months of staying in the U.S. to accompany his wife who underwent a medical procedure. Bonoan was expected to return on December 17th. He was placed under an immigration lookout bulletin order in November in relation to the flood mass probe. Meanwhile, the Justice Department will begin its preliminary investigation this week on the plunder cases against Senator Jinggoy Estrada and former Senator Bong Revilla. They are accused of receiving kickbacks from flood control projects, which both politicians deny.
This coming week, we will be issuing the subpoenas already in connection with those cases.
Dahil may amount involved dyan eh. That encompasses not just projects in Bulacan, but nationwide.
And you're watching Money Talks. Coming up, Philippine banks saw a slight improvement in bad loans in November. And SP New Energy Corp or SPNEC clarifies it is not liable for the 24 billion peso penalty imposed by the Energy Department on Solar Philippines. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Philippine banks saw a slight improvement in bad loans in November 2025. Preliminary data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas show the banking system's non-performing loan or NPL ratio eased to 3.32%, down from 3.33% in October and lower than 3.54% a year ago. Economists say recent interest rate cuts may have helped borrowers repay loans, while lower reserve requirements also boosted liquidity in the banking system. A check on the markets now. U.S. stocks fell last Friday as geopolitical and policy developments weighed on sentiment. The Dow declined by 0.1%. S&P 500 and the Nasdaq were both down by less than 0.1%. Last week was marked by renewed tensions with Iran and U.S. President Trump's push to take control of Greenland. Benchmark 10-year Treasury yields ticked up to 4.23%. And gold prices slid to $4,588 per ounce. Stock futures fall after U.S. President Trump threatened to slap tariffs on 8 European countries, which we will report in a short while. The Nasdaq tumbles by over 1%, S&P 500 down by 0.8%, and the Dow slides by 0.7%. Asian markets are also down at the get-go on this Monday morning due to Trump's tariff threats. Japan's Nikkei 225 tumbles by over 1%. Australia's ASX 200 declines by 0.33%, and South Korea's Kospi falls by 0.1%. And a quick check on our own markets on day one of a brand new trading week. PSEI opens this Monday higher by 0.2%, 6,478. The stock market slid last Friday by 0.33% as investors took the chance to take profits after hitting a key resistance at 6,480. The local bourse is expected to move sideways this week as investors search for further catalysts. As for the Philippine peso, it opens today slightly stronger, 59.34 to the dollar. The peso recovered on Friday from its record low finish to close at 59.35 to the dollar. And like stocks, the local unit may also move sideways this week ahead of the release of key U.S. economic data sets, which could influence the Fed's policy decision. 10-year government bond yields ticked up to 6.048% from the previous close of 6.045%. In corporate news, SP New Energy Corporation or SPNEC says it is not liable for the 24 billion peso penalties imposed by the Energy Department on Solar Philippines. In a statement, SPNEC said that of the nearly 12,000 megawatts of terminated contracts, only one, the 280-megawatt Santa Rosa project, falls under its responsibility. The company added it had already filed a notice of force majeure with the DOE last year, citing factors beyond its control that delayed the project's completion ahead of its December 2025 target. Both SPNEC and Solar Philippines were founded by Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste. And the headlines from around the globe. In Europe, 8 countries blasted U.S. President Trump for imposing a 10% tariff on their products starting February 1st. This comes after they opposed Trump's plans to acquire Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark that is strategic for U.S. defense. The nations warned that Trump's threats will, quote, undermine transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous spiral. Countries who signed off the statement are Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the UK, Netherlands, and Finland. In Spain, at least 21 people are dead after 2 high-speed trains collided in the town of Adamuz. 100 have been injured, with 25 of them sustaining life-threatening wounds. The cause of the crash remains unknown, but the Transport Ministry found it, quote, really strange that one of the trains derailed on a straight stretch of track. That section of track was only renewed in May. And in Chile, President Gabriel Boric has already declared a state of catastrophe in 2 southern regions as wildfires tore through nearly 8,500 hectares of land. The blaze has already killed at least 18 and forced 20,000 to evacuate. Firefighters are battling 24 active fires as of Sunday. Complicating the situation are strong winds and high temperatures of up to 38 degrees Celsius, causing wildfires to spread faster. Pope Leo XIV urged the faithful to renew their commitment to serving the marginalized as the Philippines celebrated the feast of the Santo Niño. In a message released by Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the pontiff said he hopes the celebration will deepen the faithful's understanding of baptism. Pope Leo XIV has a long-standing connection to Cebu, having visited the province in 2004 while serving as a priest and former superior general of the Augustinian Order. On Saturday, over 400 vessels took part in the traditional fluvial procession, returning the image of the Santo Niño from Mactan to Cebu City. And that is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a great day ahead.